back to my channel, True Crime with Jess. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. I am on TikTok if you'd like to look over there, or obviously, like I say, I'm live on a Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Or you can stay here and watch it over here. These ones are uploaded on a Saturday and Sunday. And if you'd like to join my Patreon, it's patreon.com/JessRose5472. And I think that's it. So thank you for joining me again. I really do appreciate it. Right, tonight's story, as the title had said, it's Guys Down the Hill, the brutal Libby German and Abby Williams story. It is awful. Very... I don't think we've heard the last of this story. I'm just going to say that for now. I've spent a very, very, very long time on this case. Followed it basically from the beginning, and I'm still not happy with the outcome of this. But let me tell you the story, and then I can explain what I mean, okay? So we've got Abigail Joyce Williams, born on the 23rd of June 2003, known as Abby, okay? And then we've got Liberty Rose Lynn German, born on the 27th of December 2002, known as Libby, okay? Now, Abby and Libby, best friends, got on really well. From what I can gather, very good girls, really good girls. Loved music. They're both in the same middle school. They play in the school band. I think Libby played saxophone. They're on the softball team. They're just really, I suppose as the saying goes, all American girls. That's how it seems, but quite quiet. By the side, Libby was very funny. So, like, some of the things she come out with would just be hilarious. That's what they do say about Libby. Now, Abby herself's quite short. All right, she's quite a short girl. Where we are in the story, we're going to get to when Abby is 13 and Libby is 14. Okay, that's where we're going to get to in this story. Now, Libby herself lives with her grandmother, Becky, and her granddad, Mike. Okay, their surname's Patty, so it's Becky and Mike, Patty. Her dad is called Derek, who is Becky's son. So Libby's dad, grandmother Becky, her husband Mike. Okay. Now I've got Abby's mum's name's Anna Williams. So we've just got these two best friends who spend a lot of time together. There is another girl as well. I mean, they've got quite a big friend group. They're just a really nice pair of girls. That's what it said. They're not out, gallivanting every weekend or anything. They're just good girls. Okay. Now we get to Sunday, the 12th of February, 2017. I've just heard what I said then. Regardless of what, gallivanting or not, I'm just making a point. They just seem like quite home birds. They'd go to each other's houses. This is the point I'm trying to make, okay? So Sunday, the 12th of February, 2017, okay? And Abby goes to Libby's for a sleepover, all right? And what it is, now this is a Sunday, so an unusual night for a sleepover, but the weather has said that there's going to be this huge snowfall, okay? Now, where these two girls live is a very small town called Delphi in Indiana in the US. Sorry, I should have said it is an American story, okay? Now, in this small town, there's just this one middle school, okay, that they both go to, and they're both really hoping that school will get called off the next day because of this huge snowstorm, all right? So they go to bed very excited, thinking, right, this is going to happen. We're going to get the day off school, all right? But when they wake up, there's no snow. I think there's been a little little covering maybe, but there's no reason for school not to be going on. But now, like I say, the girls are disappointed, but because everyone had believed that this massive snowstorm was about to hit, the school had already decided to close the next day. So they obviously, when they'd by the time they must have realised that, hang on a minute, snow's not coming, it was too late to open up and let everyone know, let all the teachers know, etc. That's all I can presume. But the girls are over the moon because they've still got this snow day with no snow. So it means they can actually go out. They haven't been sort of blocked in by this huge snowstorm. So they're very, very excited. So we get to Monday, Feb the 13th, 2017. All right. Now, they have a little discussion of what to do on their day off and where they could go and stuff like that. And eventually they come to the decision to visit Monnon High Bridge, okay? And the bridge it's sort of 100 feet over a creek. Now, I've seen it, and what it is, it's a quite a long bridge. Like I say, over this creek, you've got a hill the one side, and the creek, I think a hill the other side. And the bridge is actually train tracks, a discontinued train track. And people would, now this trail that they'd go to, that they'd visit, it's called Delphi Historic Trails. And it was just a place that people would go for a walk with their kids. And it was just a very quiet, relaxing hike. That's where they decided they wanted to go. And not only that, a lot of their friends would go to this bridge and post pictures on their social media. So the girls decided they'd like to do that. They're quite excited to do that. So Libby goes and asks her grandmother, Becky, as I'd mentioned earlier, and she goes to ask her for her permission. Now, Becky says, yeah, okay, that's fine, but I can't bring you and I can't pick you up. I don't know. It wasn't said why, but she wasn't available to do that. So she says, as long as you can get a lift there and a lift back, then that's fine, you can go. So Libby convinces her sister, her older sister, Kelsey, to drop them off. And then she talks to her dad, Derek. Now, remember I said she lives with her nan and granddad, but her dad's very much in her life. And she talks to Derek and she's like, can you pick us up? And he's like, look, listen, I can, but it's going to have to be, I don't know, around the 3 o'clock mark. So you're not really going to be there long. And they're like, no, that's fine, hour and a half, 2 hours, more than enough time for what they want to do. Like I say, it's like a trail. It's a bit of a hiking walk, not a lot there really, but they really wanted to go onto this bridge. So they agree and everything's confirmed. So we get to 1:30 p.m. All right. So we're still on the 13th of February 2017. There is going to be a lot of dates I'm going to throw at you throughout the story. Okay, it's just so we've got the right timeline. All right. So at 1:30, Kelsey drops the girls off at Monnon High Bridge Trail, which is the Delphi Historical Trails. Then at 7 minutes past 2, there's a Snapchat posted by Libby. And what it is, it's of Abby. And she's what? Now, when I say this train track on the bridge, it's quite a distance. It's quite a long walk. You can't obviously either side of that, you're going off into the creek 100 feet below. So it's quite rickety. It's quite old. Like I say, it's discontinued. But it's just a favourite place for kids to go. And they said, like, sometimes kids from school would go up there and they'd like have their legs they'd sit down on the train track and sort of like have their legs dangling over. It was a place where kids were going, which is very dangerous, but it's kids, isn't it? It's what they do. So they at 2:07, like I say, Libby takes a photo of Abby, and what it is, by the looks of it, Libby's got to the end of this train track, of the bridge, and Abby's kind of walking towards her. Okay, so that's the photo that's uploaded onto Snapchat, right? So then we get to 3:11. So it's only just over an hour later. They haven't even been there long, so we're talking an hour and a half in total, really. And Derek, Libby's dad, texts Libby to say he's nearly there to pick them up. So, but he gets no reply. All right. So then we get to 3:14, so 3 minutes later, and he actually pulls up. And when he pulls up at the spot at this kind of car park where he's agreed to meet the girls at the start of the trail, the girls aren't there. So he starts calling and texting Libby. Now, this is really unusual. Like I say, these girls they're good girls. They're very responsible, So the fact that Libby's not answering the phone and not responding to the text messages of her dad, it's really unusual. But he doesn't think, he's not thinking it's anything sinister or anything. He just thinks maybe they've got lost. Maybe one of them's fell down and hurt themselves. No one's thinking it's anything, sinister at this point, because he's called Becky now, grandmother, his mum, and he's like, did the plans change, or have they been in touch with you? Like, I'm here to pick them up, they're not here. And she's like, no, I haven't heard anything since they left with Kelsey. They should be there. So Becky and Mike, obviously grandmother and grandfather, start ringing Libby as well. No response. Again, very unusual. So Mike jumps into his car. He drives over to the trail, meets Derek in the car park, and the two of them set across to walk along this trail, the exact route that the girls would have taken. They make it to the bridge. There's no sign of these girls whatsoever. So they're getting really concerned now, and time's clicking on. Dusk's starting to come into play, and the trail closes. The trail's only open from dawn till dusk, so the trail's going to close soon, and they're getting really concerned. So at 5 p.m, obviously both families are very concerned now, and they call 911, and the Indiana State Police arrive. Okay, so by 6 p.m, now remember what I said, Delphi's a very small town. So for two of their girls to just disappear, on a day they got off school, that they, were out enjoying themselves, for them to just disappear, especially in this beautiful place, it just baffled people, that they didn't know what was going on. And like I say, they still weren't concerned, thinking it was something terrible. They thought of these girls fell and hurt themselves, one or both, and the phones have died now and they can't get in touch with anyone. This is kind of what the route people are thinking. So at 6 p.m, this huge search begins. The community are involved. The community come out in force. There was like over 100 of them. Police, family, and they search through the night for these two young girls, and there's no sign of them still. And it's like, now people are starting to think it might be a bit more sinister, because where could they, but where are they? So we get to Tuesday, February the 14th, 2017. So it's the next day. All right. And about half a mile from the bridge that I told you, Monon High Bridge. Okay. A searcher, remember, they're all out searching, they're all out looking for these young girls. A searcher finds the deceased bodies of Liberty and Abigail, and it's next to the creek. and it's bad. It's really bad. Okay. Now, the cause of death was kept from the public by the police, and it was kept for quite a long time. All right. But they confirmed the manner of death as being a double homicide. Okay. So the whole town's just devastated. Of course, the families are beyond comfort. You know, that they just couldn't believe this was happening to their families. This had happened to their little girls. It was just utter devastation across the board. Everyone was just in pure shock. Their friends, it was announced at the school the next day, and the friend I'd been referring to, who actually is in a photo with them, but she's kind of been cut out of the photo because it was a photo that was used of the two girls. But she's originally in that photo. She says as she walked into school, she just started to notice that people were crying, and she said she just knew something was bad that had been found. Okay. It was said to be a really disturbing scene. Now, around about the time the girls were found, Libby's phone was also found at the scene. Okay. So on Wednesday, the 15th of February, so the next day, the police issue a photo, like a still photo of a man on the bridge. Okay. Now, this man had on kind of ankle tight boots, blue jeans, like a blue jacket, and he had like kind of like a Peaky Blinders type cap, like a checkered cap. Didn't look overly tall, but not short either. Look kind of, I wouldn't say overweight, I'd say kind of chunky in the photo. And they issue this, and they're like, this is a person of interest. You know, if you see this man, or if you're this man, can you come forward? Okay. So on Wednesday, the 22nd of February, so now we're going a week after that, police were able to extract the video from Libby's phone. Okay, so they'd got that photo where they extracted the full video from her phone. And what they do, they release a small clip to the public of this video. And basically, it would seem that not long after that photo that Libby had taken of Abby on the bridge that got uploaded onto Snapchat, not long after that, she starts recording again. And what it is Abby is coming towards her, but in the close distance, there's this man who we've seen the picture of, okay? And he's walking a close distance behind her, behind Abby. Now, it said that Libby was very brave to pick up a phone and start recording, okay? And as Abby has come off the bridge, kind of, it looks like Libby has turned, because then you start to see kind of trees around her. Then she's turned again, and what you hear, oh, it just puts the fear of God in you. All you can hear is down the hill. It's what you hear, all right? And very briefly, you can hear either Libby or Abby say, is it a gun? They mention gun, okay? So it would seem that this man who says down the hill has got a gun, and at gunpoint brings the girls down the hill. Okay. Now, there has been questions as why didn't both of them run? Why didn't one of them run? And I think it was Mike, who is obviously Libby's granddad. He says, you know, they were like they were best friends and they were like soldiers and they wouldn't have left a man behind. That type of attitude, you know, that's how he described it. Because there was questions like, why didn't they run? Why didn't they try and get away? And I suppose if a man's got a gun to you, you're just going to try and do as you're told. It's that fight or flight thing that would have kicked in. There's so many things that probably would have kicked in with these girls. I just can't imagine how they would have felt. So now in July of 2017, so we're months ahead now. No one's come forward, okay, with what's happened with this guy from the still image. So thousands of tips that had come in, but nothing had come from it, okay. So in July of 2017, like I said, a composite sketch was released, okay, and the sketch, it does kind of look similar to the guy on the bridge. Now, all of this is online. You can look yourself. You can hear him say it, so you hear his voice. I can't imagine how these girls would have felt. I can't. It was, I mean, all I can say, I mean, and it was said she was a hero for picking up that phone and recording. Now, I have heard that phone continued recording all the way through the ordeal these girls were put through. Now, I've heard it from a couple of sources. I've no reason to believe that it's not true, but like I say, nothing's ever been released, and I don't think they would release it, obviously, but I'm going to say alleged because I'm not 100% sure, but it is said that when she started recording, the phone did continue to record, which is oh, it's just awful to think of. It really is, okay. Now, a reward of $41,000 was offered for any information. The FBI were also involved, but that man on film remains still wanted. Now, when they'd found Abby and Libby, okay, they were both left near each other, okay. Abby was naked and Libby, it would seem, had also been undressed but had been redressed in Abby's clothes. It just bizarre, and they were found with sticks on them, not enough that would even make you think that whoever had done this was trying to cover or hide the girls. They were specifically placed on the girls, and both of them, their throats had been cut, okay. Just utterly devastating, absolutely devastating. Now, I will say, there was nothing, there was no sexual assault performed on either girl. Don't know if I'm wording that right. The fact that Abby was found with no clothes on and Libby was dressed in Abby's clothes, I don't know if there had been a sexual element to it. I don't know, but there was nothing, you know, that hadn't happened, okay. So that's all we knew. That's all we really know about what happened to the girls, if I'm really honest. Okay. So we get to the 22nd of April, 2019. 2 years have gone by. 2 years. They have a video. They have a picture. They have this man's voice. No, still haven't found anything, okay? But on the 22nd of April 2019, another press conference happens with a police officer, and he's just basically saying, he's referring to the town itself, and he's saying, look, we know the person who did it is probably living in this town. We're going to find you. Quite a stern press conference. So it's been 2 years, but they release one more word that was said by that man when he reached the 2 girls. And what it said, whereas originally they'd released that it said down the hill. They then released, I don't know why it wasn't released to begin with. I don't know why it took them 2 years to release it. But it simply now says, guys, down the hill. That's what this man says to them. And it's just, oh God, if you hear it, it's just eerie. It's just horrible. I can't imagine the fear that must have gone through them. I really can't. And like I say, you can vaguely hear one of the girls say, she definitely says gun. I don't know if it is that a gun. Has he got a gun? I'm not too sure. Now his pockets do look quite full in the video. Like he did have something substantial in his pockets, which could have been a gun, could have been a not. We don't know. They believe that the girls were killed with they say box cutter, we would know it as a Stanley blade. But I don't think that would bulge in his pocket. So would that be the gun? But yeah, it's the guys down the hill was just awful. Okay, their stomachs must have dropped. But then they also release another sketch. Okay. Now, this sketch is of a much, much younger man. Okay. And nothing like the original. You put them side by side. No caps involved. It's obviously a much younger guy in it. And they put the age range as 16 to 40 years of age. And the friend who I've watched, there's so many documentaries, and one of the ones I watched was of the friend saying, she realised then, and this is 2 years later, that they had no idea who it was. 16 to 40. I mean, come on, that's some age range, really. Obviously no arrests. Now, over the years, they picked up a man called Ron Logan. Okay. Now, Ron owned the land that the girls were found on. The police were very baffled by him. He would talk to the press about what had happened, and how bad it was. Don't get me wrong, but it reminded me a lot of Jessica and Holly, the Soham murderers. And what were they doing? They were interviewed by the press a few times. So I can understand that bringing up alarm bells for the police. He also would do tours on his land to show people where the girls had been found. Just not very nice, really. Now, a search of his home was done, but the reason they'd done the search on his home is because he got himself an alibi before the girls' bodies were even discovered. So all he knew was these girls had gone missing around this area. He didn't know they'd been killed. They were about to be found. and he already had got himself an alibi. So it's all very shifty, you know, but he was never charged, okay? So that's Ron Logan. Now we get to the 6th of December 2021. 4 years have now gone by, all right? And there's an online profile of Anthony_shots found, all right? And this fella he was using pictures of a young male model, catfish. I think we all know what that time would be now. And it's a young male, very attractive model, well-known model, photos that he was using, and he would say he was rich and he had lots of sports cars and stuff. And it was to extract inappropriate photos of young girls. All right. So the problem was he's well, aside from all that, Libby was friends with this Anthony_shots, and he'd commented on a few of her posts. So now the police were concerned, had she fell for this and arranged to meet this man. So they bring him in, and his actual name is Keegan Klein. Keegan Klein, my God, disgusting looking man. Okay. Now, although he is a disgusting man, it was shown that, you know, there was no DNA placing him at the crime. You know, he passed a lie detector. So even though he was never charged with any crimes relating to Libby and Abby, he was charged against crimes against children for soliciting the pictures of those kids, and he got 43 years. Keegan Klein has, so he's actually in prison. All right. So now we get to the 31st of October 2022. So it's now been 5 years. An arrest is made of Richard Allen. Richard Allen is from Delphi. Now remember what I said? Very small little town. Very close-knit. Everyone knows everybody. And this man is from there. So he pleads not guilty straight away. You know, he's like, no, nothing to me. Now, this gets released. You know, there's a press conference and everything else. You know, we've arrested somebody and everything else. They arrest him. He's not given any option to have any bail. Now, Richard Allen was 50. He's got no prior convictions, no criminal history whatsoever. He was a pharmacist tech at a local CVS pharmacy. Locals said he seemed like a nice guy. In fact, when Abby and Libby had gone missing, one of the parents had gone into CVS to get some pictures processed and printed to put around, and he was the guy who served them. You know, everyone who was spoken to, like I say, said he was a nice guy. He'd worked there for years. He was married to Kathy Allen for 30 years. They had one daughter. All right. There's a family friend who came forward saying he's a respectable young man, sociable, friendly, and they don't believe it. They don't believe this man did this at all. Okay. And the police didn't come forward with what evidence they had for arresting Richard Allen. They didn't let anyone know what their evidence was. So everyone's getting really confused. Like, well, how do you know it's this man? You know, the families, they've been waiting years for this. And now they, not only do they don't know him personally. He wasn't like a family friend or anything, but they know of him. And they're like, well, how do you know it's him? But the police, what they do come forward and say is they do think it could be more than one killer, not just Richard Allen. There could be someone else as well, because they didn't believe that one person could do what had been done to these young girls. Okay. Now, quite quickly, Richard Allen is moved from the county jail to an actual prison. And this was done for his safety, apparently. But then straight after making that decision of moving Richard Allen, the judge recuses himself from the case and basically says, look, I think it's going to be too much. It's too high profile and I need to come away from it. Which I was like, what? Is that something that happens a lot? So another judge is appointed to this case. So we get to November 2022. Now, Richard Allen had wanted to get his own trial lawyer, his own defence lawyer, because he's pled not guilty. He says he hasn't done it. But very quickly he realises just how expensive a defence lawyer, is. So he writes a letter to the judge and requests help to pay for his defence. Now, being such a small town, you might say, well, don't they get like a state-appointed defence lawyer? No, because it was in this small town. No, they didn't have that. So the judge appoints 2 defence attorneys to him, okay, who were very experienced, very known, very good at their jobs, okay, and straight away, both of these lawyers come out and say he's 100% innocent. Now, you might be like, well, they're defence lawyers, they're paid to say that. But the one of them says, well, yeah, you're right. Okay, I am paid to defend people. But for the most part, 9 times out of 10, I don't believe them, when they say they're not guilty. For the most part, although I have to defend them, I know they're lying. He says, not Richard, not Richard. He's not guilty. So this is his defence team. Now, obviously, it's a defence team. That's what they're going to say. They're going to defend their client. So you can't really base it on that. But now, at the beginning, I says, I don't know how I feel about this case. And I'm going to just lay out a few things for you. And you can tell me how you feel. Because maybe I'm being very naive. And he is this guy, and he deserves to never see the light of day again. We know how I'm quite brutal on that. But I'm just gonna put all this information to you and tell me how you feel about it. Okay. So now remember, I said no evidence had been released of why they had charged Richard Allen up until this point. All right. So the prosecution's case was, the evidence they found against Richard Allen was Libby, they hear her saying gun. Okay, and you can kind of make it out on the tape. Of course, it's a lot clearer when he says guys down the hill, but you can kind of hear her say gun. Okay, and what they found between the 2 girls when they found them in the ground, but apparently a couple of inches into the ground, was an unspent round from a particular handgun. Okay. They believe they found, so the gun they found at Richard Allen's home, they believed that that unspent round was from his gun. Is that what do you call it when you have like a lab and stuff, get information together? I don't know. Is that how you, they said just someone looked at it and says, yeah, that's the bullet from that gun, right? Now 4 witnesses say that they saw the man in Libby's video, and these 4 witnesses were on the trail that day. Okay, now, so that's, they believe they've got these witnesses. That's their evidence as well. Now, one of the witnesses says she was going to the bridge and she saw a man on the bridge, supposedly fitting the description, but it put her off and she walked away. And as she walked away, she saw 2 young girls approaching the bridge. And I was a bit like, so if there was a man there that made you uncomfortable, why did you allow 2 young girls to head in that direction? That baffled me a little bit. Then probably the most compelling bit for the prosecution is Richard Allen admits that he was on the trail that day between 1:30 and 3:30. Okay. He says he was there to watch fish. And they also say they've got confessions from him. Okay. Haven't heard the confessions. What we hear are guards from the prison saying it was them, he confessed to them, but there's nothing recorded. Okay. So this is the prosecution's case, right? Messy at best. Okay. So the defence's case, or what they come forward and say, is they point to it being a religious sect or a cult. Okay. Now, straight away, see, when I hear things like that, I kind of cut off. But I've paid a bit more attention to this, so bear with me. Okay. Now, there's a sect out there called Odinism. Okay. Now, Odin and Thor, I thought that they were just Marvel characters. A genuinely God of Thunder. I thought I didn't know they were real mythical gods. I didn't know that, and that might sound ridiculous, but I didn't. Okay. So there's a cult who follow Odinism. All right. Now, it's actually a branch of Nazi/white supremacists. Okay. Now, people have come forward and says, you know, there are lots of people who follow Odinism who aren't one of these branches, and it's perfectly innocent, I suppose. It hasn't got a sinister meaning behind it. But this particular branch who follow, people who follow paganism, ignore me, or follow Norse gods, they can be quite not sinister. The ones who follow Odinism, it is a branch of Nazi white supremacists, I believe. Okay. And what they follow is sacrifices. Okay. Normally it's animal sacrifices. But now the defense are believing that one of the girls was sacrificed, and because the other one was with them, that's why the other one was killed. Now remember, one was found naked, one was found in the other one's clothes. Okay. Right. So they're saying it's also the sticks that were found on the girls. Do you remember I mentioned there was sticks, but it wasn't enough to be trying to hide the girls? There was about 4 or 5 sticks placed on the girls in certain positions, in certain ways. They're pointed to also possibly being part of this Odinism, okay? Or Norse gods, okay? And the defense team, after putting this forward as their defense, were taken off the case, kicked off, because everyone was shocked that this was their defense, okay? Now, when the judge put a new defense in place, those old ones who'd been kicked off the case went to the Supreme Court and they were like, no, you're not kicking us off this case. Supreme Court was like, looked into the details, and they're like, well, there's no reason you should have been taken off the case, and they're put back on. It's so messy. It's so messy. So they're put back on the case, okay? Now, what the defense attorney, one of them, does say, he says he believes it's political. And the reason he's saying that is there's an election for the sheriff, I believe, coming up. And because this case had gone unsolved, such a high-profile case as well, had gone unsolved for so many years, that Richard Allen, purely from coming forward and saying, yeah, I had been there that day, they tied him to it. Now, I don't know, but this is what the defence's case is. Normally, defence's cases I don't buy into too much, because their job is to cast out. That's what they're there for. But it's the prosecution in this case I'm kind of like, I'm looking a little bit questionable at, only because of the so-called evidence that they have, okay? Also, okay, the witness, if you remember, who claims to have saw the man who was in the sketch and then claims it is Richard Allen. Now, what they missed out is that when she came forward as a witness and said she'd seen a man that day, she described the man as being young, clean-shaven, and looking quite boyish. Richard Allen does not look boyish. He's not clean-shaven, and he's certainly not young. He's 50 years of age, okay? He's also 5'4", and the defence are like, that'd be the first thing a witness would say. If you see a man who's 5'4", first thing you're going to say is very short. But none of the witnesses said that, okay? There was no DNA of Richard Allen, except the so-called bullet that was found in the ground. But then Odinism, remember I mentioned Odinism? Well, Odinism patches were found on the guard's uniform at the prison. On their uniform, there was tattoos that pointed to Odinism. One had one on his face. The patches said, "In Odin we trust." And the judge made them take them off. Does that not sound a bit odd? And also, Richard Allen's family had been getting threatened. They'd been getting threatened. You know, he's guilty. Don't try and come forward with anything. So on the 7th of November 2024, his trial begins. All right. Very quick, I thought. Because on the 11th of November 24, so it only takes 4 days. Now, I know this can happen, but I'm just, it's a high-profile case. I would have thought there'd be a lot of evidence to see, but 4 days. And he's convicted on all accounts, found guilty. And on the 20th of December 2024, so only a couple of months ago, he was given 65 years, okay? He's given 65 years for the murder of both girls, all right? So 65 years for Abby, 65 years for Libby. All right, so 130 years in total. And I don't know how I feel about it. Now, if he did it, then in my view on what happened to these girls, he should have, the death penalty wouldn't have been, it would have been too bad for him. But 130 years, we know we'll never see the light of day again. But I just don't know how I feel about this case. I just don't. Now, Delphi Community Middle School renamed the school library Abby and Libby Memorial Library, which I thought was beautiful. There's also been a non-profit foundation formed called L&A Park Foundation, and it's like an arty musical place where people can go, which I thought was lovely, because that was what the girls were all about, weren't they? They were in music bands, they played sports, you know, they obviously like nature, to go to a nature trail. I've got to admit, don't think that's where I'd go on a day off school, you know. So it's just, it just encompasses everything the girls were about, which I think is beautiful. Now, with regards to the prosecution and the sheriff, after the fact, they both have said that they do believe there was more than one killer, at least two. So I just genuinely don't know how I feel about this case. I don't. You know, it was said that while he was in prison, it was proved that he did have depression. You know, these so-called confessions that no one's heard. You know, there are phone calls where apparently he said it to his wife, like, I did it. You know, I don't know. Like I say, the be all and end all of this story is about Abby and Libby and their lives being just brutally cut short in just a horrific manner when they were just enjoying their lives for like an hour and a half. They, you know, it's not like they'd gone out and disappeared for the day. It was an hour and a half. They'd got dropped there. They were getting picked up. Everything to ensure these girls' safety was kind of, and it's a safe town, you know, and I just don't know how I feel about it. At the same time, about the sacrifice and everything else, I don't know about that either. And like I say, I've said it, normally when I hear something like that, I'm like, no, I don't know. But in this case, I don't know about the sacrificial aspect, but I also don't know about Richard Allen. I just don't know. And when I've been looking at this and researching this, right, I like to look at a lot of comments as well, because I think sometimes you can see, like in Reddit posts, and don't get me wrong, I don't get my information from Reddit, but I do have a look on there just to see. You know, sometimes you might get people who know the victim, who know the perpetrator, you know, who know more about it than even what you can find. I'll always try and double check those facts. If I can't, then I don't come forward with it. But comment after comment after comment after comment after comment it wasn't Richard Allen. And I would never say that. He's been charged. The sentence has been done. He's 130 years. You know, I'll go with the justice system. You know, what else can you do? But I honestly don't think this is the last we'll hear of this case. I genuinely don't. So yeah, that was Guys Down the Hill, the brutal Libby German and Abby Williams story. It's just such a waste. It's just so sad. It genuinely is. I've just been left with more questions than answers in this case, to be honest. Even right down to how the girls were found. Look, everything's drip fed, and I don't understand. So thank you so much for joining me. Like I say, I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday live, or you can wait for this story to come up at the weekend. If you drop a like or a subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll be back on Thursday. So yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Take care. Thank you.